Hello, and welcome to the Fall Biking Mini Clinic. I'm Maddie Carlson. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the Education and Engagement Director at the Street Trust. I'm recording this clinic specifically for our Ride to Own program and the e-bikes used in that program, but the information I'm going to cover is terrific for anyone on any type of bike. So if you're not a Ride to Own program participant, keep watching. The Street Trust advocates for multimodal transportation options that prioritize safety, accessibility, equity, and climate justice. The Street Trust envisions a complete, safe, low-carbon, multimodal transportation system that contributes to equity and access, opportunity, health, and prosperity for people and communities. We work at the literal intersection of an ongoing transportation crisis. Every day, our unsafe and incomplete public streets threaten our lives and livelihoods. We are driven by a passion for complete streets rooted in the belief we can stop preventable death resulting from inequality, lack safety, and climate change. Our Ride to Own e-bike program is a group of public, private, nonprofit, and community change makers coming together to spur demand for e-mobility and inform better transportation infrastructure. Participants in the Ride to Own program receive an e-bike at no cost, along with the essentials, including safety gear, repair, and scheduled maintenance, and educational programming like this clinic. Today, we'll talk about cold, dark, rain, and wind. We'll go into riding techniques, routes, laws, and what to wear. For starters, I want to remind Ride to Own participants that we have no expectations about the number of miles or the number of trips you take. You're all doing great. This clinic is to teach you how to feel safe and comfortable if you go riding in these conditions. Riding in the rain isn't my favorite thing, I'll admit, but I still feel that same joy of getting to be out on my bike experiencing the world even when the weather is icky. Remember from orientation that every ride you take makes a difference. Each trip on your e-bike is good for your health in many ways: heart, muscles, mood, blood pressure, etc. It's also good for the environment. It's good for everyone's safety if you're replacing a car trip, and it saves you money, almost $1 for every mile you bike. Let's talk about batteries first. As it starts getting really cold, you'll notice that your range diminishes. You might remember from our summer clinic to charge your battery at room temperature for best results. So let your battery warm back up before you plug it in. Charging a cold battery can damage it and reduce its lifespan from many years to only 1 year or even less, and also increase the chance of fire. If you end up staying off your e-bike this time of year or at any point down the line for an extended period of time, don't neglect your battery. Keep it in the best shape by having it in a dry space that's always between 35 and 90 degrees. But the best specs for battery storage are even more condensed than that. If it's going to be over 2 weeks, keep your battery between 40 and 80% charged and between 60 and 70 degrees. For long-term storage, check and charge your battery at least every 90 days to prevent complete discharge, because that will also cause it to die sooner. Most e-bike user manuals and e-bike battery guides will say to always plug your charger directly into the wall, and that is best. But if you know it's going to be hard for you to keep your battery healthy, it is okay to use a timer. Just make sure that it's a 3-prong timer. Our awesome VeloFix mechanic, who a lot of you have met already, has worked with thousands of e-bikes for lots and lots of years. So he gave me this advice to pass along to you, that the 3-prong chargers or timers for your chargers are indeed safe. Like I said, it's okay to ride less in the fall and winter, but don't forget to keep a close eye on your e-bike to keep it safe. If you can keep it inside, that's best both for the health of your battery, motor, and other bike parts, as well as good for theft prevention. If you normally park in a garage or a shed, but you're not going to be using it much, see if you can store it inside your living space. Our first Ride to Own pilot program saw a few folks who had their unattended chargers stolen, but we haven't had that happen at all for our new 3 cities. So good work keeping your charger safe, and don't forget to keep doing that through the fall and the winter. Now, this idea came from you all, tracking your e-bikes with something like an Apple AirTag or tiles. Remember that even before the year the program is up, you should consider the e-bikes yours and make them your own, whether it's applying one little sticker or a whole bunch of accessories, including things like AirTags or tiles or another brand of tracker. Law-wise, I'm going to focus on the few yellow highlighted items and how they relate to riding this time of year. First, Oregon's Stop as Yield law is the one where people on bikes can treat stop signs like yield signs, which is really nice when you're fighting wind or dealing with rain. But since it's darker out, take a lot of care making sure that the intersection is truly clear before you go, whether it's a car or bike without lights on or someone crossing the street who's hard to see. Next is the law to signal our turns, but it's also the law that we don't have to if we don't feel safe. So if the ground feels slick with new rain, you can keep both your hands on your handlebars so you're in full control and close to your brakes. Third, if there's a bike lane, we're required to use it. However, if that lane is filled with anything dangerous like leaves or gravel or potholes, the other law, bike as far to the right as is safe and practical, comes into play. So it is 100% okay to avoid bike lanes when they're filled with crud. And now bike lights that was listed on that previous slide. Your e-bikes meet the legal requirements of a front white light and a red rear reflector or light. But if you have extra bike lights, it is great to add them to your bike this time of year or any time of year. If you've been thinking about purchasing extra lights, we recommend that you get ones that are between 400 and 700 lumens. Less than 400 is enough for the legal requirement, but it won't illuminate potholes and other things in front of you on the ground. Brighter than 700 is too bright for city riding. It'll blind others. But those super bright lights are good for nighttime mountain biking. So consider getting those if you're going to do anything like that. Colorful decorative lights are fun, and strangers will probably compliment you about them all the time, but they're already also really great for safety, especially because they provide side illumination. I've got 3 examples in my photo here. I have pink down low glow on the back. I have a light strip around the box of the bike and wheel lights on the front light. All of those are various options of ways you can light your bike with extra things that all work well for side visibility. Lights on your wheels and your pedals are especially good for visibility because they have extra movement that draws the eye to them. Also related to that, reflectors on moving parts like reflective ankle bands are really great for side visibility. I really liked this data that Cynthia Newton from our legal partners at TCNF just shared with us all during that e-bike law Let's Talk clinic. So I am sharing it here too to really drive home the point of how important your lights are and how what color you're wearing can make a difference from the side if you're not lit up from the side. Also, everyone is a pedestrian some of the time, even if it's just walking into the store from a parking lot. So this data affects just about everyone. Light clothing makes you 3 times more visible, and reflective clothing makes you almost 10 times more visible. A lot of our streets have 20-mile-per-hour speed limits, like on this slide, and it takes someone 64 feet to stop. But for 30 miles per hour, it takes 110 feet for someone to stop. And for 40 miles per hour, it's 165 feet. Wet roads can be slippery, especially with the first rain after a dry spell. Don't ride through puddles because you don't know what's in them. A lot of puddles are hiding deep potholes, which can cause flat tires if you hit them, not to mention catch you by surprise and cause a crash. Also avoid riding over metal grates, metal plates, and through piles of leaves. These can be slippery, and the piles of leaves might also be hiding potholes. Basically, stick to visible, smooth road when you can. Also, in general, you want to be careful in any season and any condition when you're moving from one type of surface like another, whether it's an asphalt road onto a metal plate, or gravel onto a road, or concrete onto grass. Any transition is the trickiest part. But also note, the bikes are really good at staying upright while they're moving, so I don't want to make you worry excessively about avoiding any fallen leaf, but just be aware of what's coming up in front of you, and if you have time to aim around it without swerving, do so. Take your corners slowly. Going slower keeps your bike at a more upright angle, and the more upright you are, the more of your tire is in contact with the ground. If you're the kind of person who likes to adjust your tire pressure and keep an eye on it closely, lower it by 20% to create more surface area to contact the road. But then you need to be especially careful about not hitting bumps and sharp objects because you're slightly more likely to get a flat tire if you do that. So you'll need to keep an eye on that pressure to make sure it doesn't get too low, because then you'll be even more likely to get a flat tire. And it is okay to be like me and keep your tires always pumped up to the max, so you never have to think about flat tires. As the weather turns, you might want to reevaluate your routes a bit. You'll probably develop various workarounds depending on the weather. To give you a Portland-based real-life example, bridge crossings. If you're feeling buffeted by the wind and you don't want to be on the Hawthorne Bridge that has no barrier between you and the car lane, take Tillicum Crossing or the Steel Bridge, even if it means going out of your way. If Tillicum Crossing which is the longest car-free bridge in the United States, is your usual bridge, but you don't like all the MAX and streetcar rails that you need to ride over on wet days, you might want to go a little bit out of your way to go on the Hawthorne Bridge. When I send out our recap, I will provide links for finding your local maps, which I guess you've already received with this link to this video. But for all of the Portland metro region, Google Maps works really, really well. I have an iPhone, and rather than use Apple Maps, I have the Google Map app on it, and I use it for all of my routing if I'm already out and away from my computer. When I am at home, I use Google Maps on my computer, and I really like to toggle between Google Street View and Map View to see exactly what the streets and the intersections look like when I'm choosing my routes. And here's a reminder from orientation about where to find all your local bike maps. For Hillsborough, it is one of the few big cities in the area and our only program city without a bike map yet. But their transportation system plan, their TSP, is part of their very cool Hillsborough 2035 community plan, which you can see at hillsborough2035.org, which gets lots of updates and has led to many bike lanes being built. So I imagine it will yield a standalone bike map in the future. For Milwaukee, go to the City of Milwaukee's Bicycling in Milwaukee webpage. I've got the Google search string, Bicycling in Milwaukee, underlined on this slide. That brings it up as the first search result. And the first link on the Bicycling in Milwaukee webpage is a PDF bike map like the image on the right of this slide. And there are also details about current initiatives, laws, and helpful resources. For Portland, PBOT, the Portland Bureau of Transportation, has free paper maps you can order, a mobile-friendly interactive map, whole city and regional printable PDF maps, and whole city and regional maps in English and Spanish. Google Bike and Walk Maps of Portland to get to that webpage. Either planning ahead to use the bus or the MAX one way or part of the way, or just having it as a backup for unexpected horrible weather is an awesome strategy. The V-Bolt Alphas and Alpha 2s in the Ride to Own program fit on the TriMet bus rack, which is exactly why we got them for you. Plus, they're just awesome bikes. If you Google how to put your bike on a TriMet bus rack, you'll find both the TriMet webpage with a photo tutorial and an awesome video from our friends at Community Cycling Center. And then there's the MAX too. The V-Volts fit fine on the hooks. Though for some of the trains, the hooks have a little less space and you'll have to angle your wheel in and then angle it again to get it off the hook, but they fit on them all. For the 15 electric Expedition cargo e-bikes in the program, I do want you to know that cargo bikes aren't technically allowed on the MAX, but so many cargo bikers in the region regularly ride with them and do just fine. You don't need to buy a whole bunch of stuff to ride through the fall and hopefully through winter too. And you probably already own things that will do the trick, even if you haven't been using a bike in the fall before now. But I am going to show you several examples to solutions so you can see what's out there. And for most of the stuff, you can DIY, do it yourself, your own version. And I'll make sure to share the information about that too. Clothing is sold for various conditions, like rain jackets versus windbreakers versus snow apparel, but there's tons of overlap. Rain gear is good for blocking wind and cold, and warm clothing like an old ski jacket that isn't waterproof is great in drizzle. I'm going to maybe go a little overboard in talking about how to stay warm, and I've taken information from our winter clinic and put it into the fall clinic, because there's one thing folks on e-bikes tend to do, and that is get much colder than expected, because while an e-bike still gives you plenty of exercise and is in no way whatsoever cheating, you're always going to be a little colder than if you were on a regular non-e-assisted bike. So we're going to start from head to toe. Helmet covers are pretty cool. Some people get them to look stylish, and some get them for the nice built-in visors to keep the rain off their faces. All helmet covers, even the ones that don't have visors and aren't waterproof, are great for blocking cold air from coming in the little vents in your helmet. Some helmet covers even have flaps on the back to prevent rain from dripping inside your collar and keep the back of your neck warm. And I've shared this trick at orientation and at the summer clinic, and I'll probably share it again and again every time you see me. Get an old baseball cap and take the little button off the top, ideally, so it fits more comfortably, and then put it under your helmet to make a visor of your own to keep rain and drizzle off your face. Just like that baseball cap I mentioned, any layer that's not super bulky won't compromise the safe fit of your helmet. So add a layer to keep warm, like a balaclava that covers a lot of your face, a knit cap, or a hoodie or jacket hood. Your helmet might fit too snugly for that though, and that's okay. Your helmet still fits. That doesn't mean it's not big enough. If you don't have space, there are headbands and earbands and half face masks that don't need to be over the top of your head. These products aren't made bike specific, so they're not designed to fit perfectly with your helmet, but they happen to fit together very, very well. There are also various ear pads designed to attach to the V of your helmet straps. Mine in the picture are from Etsy and they're called Helmuffs, like helmet ear muff. But various bike companies make insulated ear pads and their patterns if you want to sew or knit or felt your own. If you need to get a new rain jacket, it's really nice to have a cycling specific one. They're wider across the shoulders, so they'll fit comfortably when you're hunched over handlebars. They're a bit longer in the back to be comfortable and cover you up well, but non-cycling jackets work just fine too. What I would recommend though, if you have a jacket that you think you want to ride in that you haven't tried yet, is do a test ride in it when you're not in a hurry and ideally if it's not already raining. And what you want to do is test sliding off your saddle as if you were stopping at a red light and then hopping back on as if you were getting going. And the main thing you're checking is that your jacket isn't at a length that it's going to snag on your saddle in either direction. And even if it does, that is okay, but you're going to want to build that habit of hopping up just so and sliding down the right way that it doesn't snag and startle you. Cycling rain capes are really neat. They offer whole body coverage with just one piece of gear. Cycling specific rain capes are sized to fit very well on a bike. They're not too long, so they don't get caught in your spokes, and they're not so short that they won't cover up your legs. They also usually have hidden handholds underneath, so you can drape them over your hands and put your hands on your handlebars and create this nice big barrier over everything below them. I'm really bummed that right now, I keep checking, the $15 IKEA Saltston rain poncho isn't on the IKEA US site, but it's been there in the past and it's on a lot of other countries' IKEA sites. So I have a feeling it'll come back. But you can also DIY a bike-friendly rain cape from a regular cheapy poncho with just a little bit of tape trimming or taping. Another nice thing about cycling rain jackets and rain cape is that the hoods are made big enough to either go over your helmet or they have tightening cords if you want to cinch them down really tight and put them under your helmet. At the start of cold weather, any thin, cheap cotton gloves work great on a bike. But if you run really cold or as it gets colder, you might need to step through some various options to keep your hands warm enough. Cycling specific waterproof gloves are a great next step or first step. And then there's a whole array of winter cycling gloves. Regular mittens are great for keeping warmer than regular gloves since your fingers are touching each other and sharing heat. There are also cycling specific lobster gloves and mittens where you've got two fingers keeping each other warm, which is one step up from gloves. You can layer two sets of gloves or two sets of mittens if you've already got two pairs. Sometimes that's not enough, or that's not enough just for your thumb. And then handlebar mittens are really awesome. Handlebar mittens are also called pogies if you want to do some searching for various brands. They're spacious enough to wear a pair of gloves under, and there are a lot of brands that sell them nowadays. Rock Bros is one, Rad Power, another e-bike maker. Bar Mitts is the first brand to sell them in the US, and there are also various Canadian, European, and Japanese companies and small makers that ship all over the world, as well as patterns if you want to make your own. And at the super toasty end of the spectrum, there are heated motorcycle grips that fit on your bike because bike handlebar diameters happen to be the same as motorcycle handlebar diameter. And heated gloves. There are both USB rechargeable and battery operated heated gloves. Those are pretty amazing. People with rain capes usually don't wear rain pants, but they're nice to wear with regular rain jackets. Bicycling specific rain pants are roomy at the knee to accommodate pedaling and usually have zippers at the bottom so you don't have to remove your shoes to get them on and off. Non-bike specific rain pants are great too, but they might not cinch tight enough at the ankle, which rubs the risk of rubbing against your chain or your belt drive if you have a belt drive bike like the V-Volts, and then that might tear your pants or get caught in your gears. I have the cheapest REI rain pants, and they do have Velcro at the bottom, but they don't cinch tight enough. So I cut up an old sock to make a little ankle band to hold them in place better. Sometimes I use a pair of old hiking gaiters that also helps keep my whole ankle dry and warm, and that holds my pant leg in place really well too. Rain chaps, like in the picture here, and Rain legs is the main brand that makes those, are nice for partial coverage of the main part of your leg that gets wet. These are really nice if you happen to run hot. That's why I like wearing them. A third option is a rain skirt or a rain kilt. These aren't widely available as an aftermarket product, and my own rain skirt is one that a friend made for me, but I quite like it. I've seen people in heavy waterproof overskirts designed for riding Vespas that look like they'd work really well for biking. Skirts that don't have a mechanism to connect them to your knees will sometimes fly up and don't keep you dry. So some people use garters to clip them down, or there's a trick called penny in your pants. Google that and a little video will come up that's made to hold down a skirt with a rubber band and a penny. But that also makes your skirt that much shorter and therefore not cover quite as much. And on the Vespa skirt note, there is a lot of gear designed for motorcycles, motor scooters, and even strollers that can be used to keep warm and dry on bikes. If you have waterproof shoes, use those in the rain, but check to make sure that they're not slippery against your pedals or slippery against the ground, because that could be unsafe when you put a foot down when you're stopped at a red light. If you don't have waterproof shoes, there are waterproof shoe covers. In the middle of my picture, under my waterproof boot, is a typical cycling shoe cover made for clip-in cycling shoes. These are also called booties or overshoes. You can see that they have a big gap at the bottom to accommodate a cycling shoe cleat, but they work great for regular shoes too. They're not designed to do a ton of walking in, so I take mine off if I'm going to end up walking a lot so I don't tear up the bottoms. They're usually made from neoprene or nylon for the waterproof ones, and most of them are ankle high, but some are even taller, and those do a really nice job of keeping a wide pant leg cinched in. Some even have lights built into them. Instead of, or in addition to these, there are also waterproof socks like the one at the bottom of my photo. And there is the age-old brilliant trick of putting a plastic shopping bag around your foot, outside your sock, but inside your shoe, and that will keep your foot warm and dry. It's generally not so cold here in the Pacific Northwest that we have to be careful about wearing a wool-based layer. Cottons and synthetics work fine, but if you are a wool wearer, it is great for cold, as well as for rain, because wool keeps you warm even when it's wet. There are a lot of people out there who wear wool jackets instead of rain jackets or make wool ponchos. Combining layers is great for keeping warm too. For example, long underwear or nylons or tights under your regular jeans, or rain pants over your jeans even when it's not raining, or a long sleeve shirt plus a rain windbreaker plus a wool coat. Removable battery heated clothing comes in every imaginable piece. Every base layer garment comes in a rechargeable heated version. Jackets, vests, scarves, socks, insoles, gloves, and caps even. And if all of that aforementioned gear and layering isn't doing the trick, those little toe, hand, insole, and stick-on body warmer packets are pretty awesome too. I have the reusable ones shown in the picture on the right, and they aren't nearly as small, nor do they stay hot as long as the disposable chemical ones, but they do the trick too if you're looking for a reusable heat pack. Take note if your outerwear is waterproof or water resistant. Water resistant garments are just fine in light rain, but they're not seam sealed and they'll eventually let water in if you get caught in a heavy rain, or if you're out for a very long time, or if you make multiple trips without drying off. Your rain gear should last a long time, but sometimes it needs a little bit of help to retain its waterproofness. Time or overwashing or a backpack rubbing against your rain jacket can all compromise its waterproofness. Check with the manufacturer's website of your rain gear for care instructions. Some of them might need waterproofing sprays or washes. Folks that work at outdoor stores tend to prefer the washes to the sprays, but I think the sprays are a little easier. That will replace a washed off or worn off water resistant outer layer. And some simply need a tumble dry in a warm dryer to reactivate them. If you have a waterproof bike bag or backpack, you are set for carrying stuff. But if you don't, the trick is to keep your precious stuff inside a waterproof bag inside your non-waterproof carrier, whether that non-waterproof carrier is a milk crate, a basket, an old cotton backpack, or just on top of your bike rack. I've got some various examples here. I love the 99-cent Trader Joe's bags for keeping stuff dry, even though they're not 100% waterproof, and over time they get less water resistant, but they totally do the trick. I wrap my laptop up in one and it is fine. However, if you happen to find a real dry bag, like the one in the lower left-hand corner, those are really made to keep things dry. I found mine for a great price at grocery outlets, so that's a good place to keep an eye out for those. Thank you for watching the mini clinic. Send any feedback. Ride to Own feedback should go to support@ridetoown.org, and any other feedback should go to info@thestreettrust.org. Both of those will make their way to me, so I will see your feedback and can pass anything along to any other folks who should see it. If you're watching this to fulfill a Ride to Own educational requirement, we must have sent you a link to the YouTube Clinic feedback survey form. Please don't forget to fill that out. It's very short, and it is how we know to record that you watched this. Thank you so much. Goodbye.